Hello, my name is Russell Myers, independent for U.S. President for 2024. One of the policies that I have made reference to is ending the wars that we are in and not starting any new wars. So, what exactly does that mean? All right, so obviously, ending the wars that we are in means that I would withdraw our troops from Iraq, Syria, Somalia, etc. I stop all of the bombing, and but it means more than that. It also means that I would lift sanctions on other countries. I'm going to do a separate video covering sanctions on on the Issues Unite channel. But sanctions are acts of war. Sanctions kill. In addition, sanctions do tremendous damage to our own country. And most people don't seem to understand this. But above and beyond all else, what this means is that I would engage in diplomacy. Diplomacy means that I would sit down and have conversations with the leaders of nations that we do not agree with. So you don't end a war or prevent an armed conflict by refusing to talk to people you disagree with. The only result in this is going to be continued conflict, either politically, economically, armed conflict, whatever, however you want to view it, it just means continued conflict. Look at how long the United States has been in conflict with North Korea and with Russia, Cuba, and on and on and on. Just because we don't agree with their socioeconomic system does not make them an enemy in any way. Is Cuba a threat to the United States? Is North Korea actually a threat? Would they be a threat if we had decent relations with them? They can have their own socio-economic system. If they want to change it, it's up to the people of that country. It is not up to us. North Korea and South Korea do not have peace. They, ever since 1955, I think, they have been in a state of ceasefire, which means the Korean War is still there. It's still there. The Korean War never actually ended. So it's just suspended. They're just not fighting with they're not actively fighting with each other, but the war is still a thing. What is going on in Ukraine right now could have been prevented if diplomacy had worked. I've mentioned on the other channel many times that that Donbass has been under attack by Ukraine for the past 8 years. And on my social media page last night, I posted a series of articles from Human Rights Watch, The Washington Post, and New York Times that actually covered the conflict in Donbass from Human Rights Watch. They mentioned it in, I think, 2016 and 2018. The Washington Post talked about it in 2017. The New York Times talked about it in 2021. So people saying that this is all propaganda just have not been paying attention. And the United States really doesn't have anything to do with this. The ones that should have been acting on this was the UN and Germany and France, who were all signatories to the Minsk Accord. But the United States could have actually told Ukraine, you need to sit down and talk. They could have forced Ukraine to do this. Instead, what were we doing? Giving them more weapons. Part of my policy about diplomacy would be, okay, we will sell you weapons, like to Saudi Arabia, Israel, etc. But you will sit down and have peace talks with your adversaries. You will. If you do not, you are not going to get a single weapon from us. You are not going to get a single penny in aid. In addition, I would make the policy that no country receives financial aid from the United States for any purpose other than humanitarian assistance. And it would have to be demonstrated that this is what that aid is being used for. In fact, I would probably go about sending what they need, food, medications, medical equipment, etc., instead of sending them any money at all. That way, you know that it's not being used to turn around and buy weapons. If they do not engage in efforts toward peace, then we will not assist them. Israel refuses to talk to Hamas. Hamas is the leading political party in Palestine. I would also not provide any aid at all or sell any weapons to any country that is militarily occupying another country. So, in this way, you lead toward peace. We keep on hearing over and over how if we keep selling weapons that this somehow leads to peace, and yet we are having to sell more weapons and we're seeing more armed conflicts. So that approach does not work. It will not work. There is no concept where it could work at all. It does not happen. So what has to happen is diplomacy. Sitting down, having discussions, hearing from both sides of any potential conflict. I would absolutely oppose any form of war for regime change. If the people of another country want to change their government, it is up to the people of that country. It is not up to us. Something like Crimea, they held a referendum. They chose to rejoin Russia. Donbass should be held. There should be a referendum that is held in Donbass, not in Ukraine as a whole, but in Donbass, as to whether they want to remain a part of Ukraine. What is all of this about maintaining the sovereignty or cohesion of a nation when people of certain regions of that country do not want to be under that government? When they feel that they are made outsiders and enemies within their own country, then they should have the right to self-determination, to their own security, to their own sovereignty. If you do this, then you can actually prevent conflicts from ever happening without firing a shot. You don't need all the weapons. So this will all go back to something that I will discuss separately, which is decreasing our so-called defense spending, which we're already at $773 billion a year on defense spending, and the talk in Congress right now is to add another $30 billion next year. So bringing the official Pentagon budget to over $1 trillion. And yet our bridges are still collapsing. Wars keep on continuing as long as the United States is still involved. Yemen and Saudi Arabia have agreed to a ceasefire. As long as the United States is not involved in it, then peace is happening. There are peace talks happening between Ukraine and Russia. And yet Zelensky is still asking for more weapons. We keep handing them weapons. That just means more people are going to die. And yet we're not saying, okay, you and Putin and us, we're going to sit down in a room and we're going to talk this out until some agreement is reached. That's what should be happening. That's what I would do. Instead of defending ourselves from enemies, let's stop having enemies. How about that? There's a concept for you. So that would be my policy, to engage in diplomacy. And that's what diplomacy means. Diplomacy does not mean building up, an alliance of other countries to attack one other country, etc. That's not what diplomacy means. Diplomacy means solving your problems, your disagreements. That's what diplomacy is all about. In this way, you can end conflicts and prevent conflicts from ever happening, instead of spending $1 trillion a year on weapons. All right. Share this video. Talk about these subjects. Please subscribe to the channel and, support these ideas. This is where we need to be going. All right. So thank you very much for watching, And I will catch you in the next one.